Dawson's Rambles.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. Welcome to my review for Power Rangers Beast Morphers episode 3. So this was kind of our first, I would say, status quo episode. You know, obviously 1 was the pilot, 2 wasn't technically like a part 2 of the pilot, but was still in the setup range. But I think this was like our first filler episode that sort of gives us a somewhat decent idea of what like a day in the life episode will be like. And I thought it was pretty good. I mean, I didn't like it as much as the other two. I thought there was definitely some little cheesy moments. I mean, that's inherent with PR, but I definitely felt some, you know, Neo Saban growing pains stuff, like, you know, kind of stuff left over in it. Because the core plot was very Neo Saban-ish. It was about Zoe, basically, well, it was about Zoe, but I mean, it was about the mayor wanting to create a new road, like in the middle of the forest to make, this is like legit the plot. This is one of those times where I'm explaining the plot of Power Rangers episode and it sounds funny, but like to make work travel faster, but Zoe's like, no, because green stuff, so why don't we just use these bikes? And it starts off with her, you know, having Nate help her build a bike powered by MorphX, and she's like, well, we can just use those around the city. Like, I think there's some interesting stuff about the idea, like, again, using MorphX for, like, everyday stuff. It ties back into, she mentioned in the first episode she wanted to use it for bikes, MorphX for bikes. Although I thought that was going to end up tying to an introduction for, Cruz being able to transform into Devin's bike. Like, he just showed that off last episode, and I thought that was going to be like a whole little mini arc where she's like, oh, I have an idea, and then she creates the, you know, the bike mode or something. That's what I thought that was going to be for. I didn't know it was going to be for literal bikes, even though we got the, you know, the set pictures of this. It's one of those things where, and it's funny me saying this because there was like many discussions last week about whether rabbits actually like carrots, and I mean, it's not actually nutritional for them. Like, I can't even believe how much people talked about it. It was kind of funny because I didn't really think anything of it because, you know, rabbits liking carrots has kind of been a cartoon stereotype, and I really had no problem with it. But like, this ran into some logistical problems that bothered me a little bit, I guess. So I guess I kind of understand where the carrot people are coming from. Like, for example, like, she pitches these bikes to the mayor, and then within seemingly 20 minutes, they're all over the city, widespread. It's like one of those weird timeline problems that shouldn't bother me, but it does. And it wouldn't bother me if they showed some more time passing. Like, on a smaller scale, it reminds me of the episode in Dino Supercharge where Coda went through like an entire baseball season career in like a weekend. And also the idea like, oh, we need to make people's work trip easier and faster by making this road. Let's make it easier by using an outdated form of transportation. Like, again, I get what they were going for. A little bit cheesy stuff behind it. But that was like the core premise that led to, you know, like the Rangers in civilian mode trying to sell the bikes. And then, you know, Evox sends his crew to steal the MorphX out of the bikes because, you know, it's just sitting right there on the street. The Rangers try to stop him. You know, they destroy the first iteration of the monster. And then, like, after that, the bikes aren't working so well because I guess they think because the monster attacked one of these bike stations, the people are going to be turned off from the bikes. And so they're like, oh, let's just Noah's Ark the animals into an SUV. That was kind of weird too. Like, were they taking 2 of each? Were they trying to take all the animals? That seemed really ridiculous. Like, I get the idea again, but logistically it just didn't make sense to be like, well, in order to save all the animals, let's just pile them all into these cars, and then we have to bring them back at the end because, spoiler alert, they saved the forest. I don't know, it seemed ridiculous. But there was a couple things that I liked within this story, like character beats. I mean, I don't think we really learned anything new about Zoe, but I do quite like Zoe's like strong determination despite the fact that many people underestimate her from being a laundry girl. We found out that the newswoman, who I believe has been on at least one other week, is her mother. And this is kind of a weird thing to know, but I like that it's not the standard, I feel like there's a standard parental Power Rangers arc where the parent will come in and basically undermine or underestimate their kid, and I like that she was actually kind of supportive of Zoe because I very easily could have seen this be a classic like, oh, Zoe, you know, you need to know your place and not, but, you know, I kind of liked that. But, you know, we learned who her mom is, and, well, I guess we didn't learn anything new about her, but I think it just kind of reinforced her character, and even though the plot was a little bit iffy and a little cheesy and a little weird, I do like Zoe, and I like the role she played in it in a lot of ways. But something I did appreciate was during the scene in which they're Noah's Arking the animals, there's a nice scene with Nate and Zoe where he talks about like, well, this must be what it's like to have a family, because I don't have a family. I'm like, dude, you've known these people like 3 days. But what I liked about that scene is we learned a little something about Nate, like his parents are overseas. He always felt kind of, you know, like a loner because his parents were always away. And he's kind of finding a found family through the Rangers. I appreciated that because A, we're finding something else about a character, but also because, you know, I mentioned this a lot in Super Steel, and Ninja Steel in general, that when we would have episodes, I felt like we never got any valuable time with the characters because the main purpose of the plot, or the Rangers for the plot, was just for them to service whatever moral of the week was happening, and I felt like we never used it to learn anything about the Rangers. And this episode I thought did at least a somewhat better job than Super Ninja Steel, and we actually, it was a brief scene, but we learned a little something about Nate, and I felt like we got to spend valuable time with Zoe that, not super valuable, like I don't want to sound like overzealous about it, but I mean, it didn't feel like Zoe was out of character necessarily just to make the plot work. So, you know, I think they can do better about it in the future, but I think it's at least a good sign that we had a character moment for both of them, really. But then, you know, Blaze is trying to steal more Morphex, and that leads to that bike sequence chase, which is obviously going to be how the bikes ended up being cool again, because they're like, we need to figure out how to make the bikes cool, because Ben and Betty made like a tandem bike, which is apparently cooler to the people of Coral Harbor, which seems weird, although they solved the cup holder problem that one concerned citizen mentioned, because you gotta have your coffee. Am I right, Justin? But yeah, so like the Rangers are chasing Blaze on the bike. Again, I kind of liked that sequence, and especially within the context of the plot. And it was kind of an on-the-nose but kind of funny way for the bikes to become popular again. And then they chase Blaze back to the warehouse where Roxy's there. There was like a brief moment of acknowledgement of like, oh, it's Roxy, but then they get over it very quickly. And like, everybody just has to, everyone ends up having to leave until it's just Zoe, because Ravi goes off first to fight in the Gorilla Zord when Skrillex sends out one of those, the Giga Droids or whatever, and then, you know, after he needs help, Devin goes, and then so it's just him and Zoe. Obviously this is something from Go Busters, but I've mentioned this previously, but I really like the unique mecha footage from Go Busters in terms of like the fact that they use the individual Zords, the fact that it's not always like the classic Rangers fight small monster, blow him up, gets big, all Rangers fight in the Megazord. Like, you'll have somebody on the ground while there's Megazord fights happening, in addition to the fights being a little more unique. So I really enjoy seeing that again, and I'm glad that like the US is getting to see that and that we're making use of that. So that was kind of cool. The fight between Zoe and Roxy was kind of neat, and I liked Roxy in this episode, but like, I feel like we haven't seen very much of her since the pilot, like, compared to Blaze. Although, I mean, that seems weird to say because we're so close in, but you know what I mean. There was this really weird moment where, like, you know, it was that classic, like, somebody shot something at somebody and they're like, you missed me, and they're like, no, I didn't, and they did that twice. But it was, like, weird tonally, where, like, when Roxy, like, threw something, she's like, you missed, and then she's like, oh no I didn't, and then there's like this bam music, and then like they reverse it where Zoe throws the Morphex to blow up these canisters behind Roxy, and she's like, you missed too, and she's like, no you didn't, and it was almost like a Bulk and Skull music. It was just really weird tonally, and then like, right before Roxy left, she like complimented her. She's like, I guess you underestimated him. She's like, yeah, I did. You're great. And then she left. Like, she didn't say it like that, but it was weird. I feel like there could be something interesting there. Maybe about Roxy's personality retaining. Like, I thought they were going to have a kind of rivalry because they're both the Yellow Rangers, but I don't know. Like, I like parts of that scene, but there was definitely something tonally off about that. Speaking of, there was also a minute earlier when I think it was when the monster first attacked and they attacked Ben and Betty and their bike blew up again. I do kind of dig Ben and Betty. I mean, they weren't as great in this episode as the last one, but I feel like in Beast Morphers, if I could have like one of my few complaints, is there has been some really weird tonal elements. Like, obviously comedy stuff's always been a part of Power Rangers, but it just felt like a weird break. Like, having Ben and Betty basically Team Rocket blast off again in the middle of the episode, or in the middle of the fight, just felt like a weird tonal shift back and forth. And same thing with that weird Roxy. I think it was the music. Like, it was weird. Like, they added Bulk and Skull music, and I thought it was worth noting. Or it wasn't the exact music, but I don't know. It was just a strange moment. But, you know, anyway, they saved the day, and the bikes are, you know, cool again, because the Rangers are, you know, riding them, and they obviously have to bring all the animals back now. And you end on kind of a Ben and Betty moment. But, you know, like I said, I don't like this episode as the previous two. I definitely think it had some of those more Neo-Sabani cheesy elements, but I still think it was a solid episode. I'm still not like, oh my god, it's doomed now, because I think it was better than a lot of Ninja Steel filler because they did have some more character moments, and it didn't feel like the plot of the week was fully driving everything and changing everything around. So like, I like that we got character moments with Nate. I liked Zoe in the episode. I like that we had a little bit, you know, continuation on some of the stuff like with Roxy. Not like continuation, but you know what I mean? Like it felt like we were expanding on that a little bit. I like the mecha footage, I like the fight footage, I like the bike chase and stuff like that. So I think it was just like an overall decent filler episode. It'll be interesting to see more as we go on. Unfortunately, we are taking a break next week, but like I really want to see like a handful of filler episodes because it's hard to judge off of one in a way, because for any PR season, whether it's your favorite or least favorite, I'm sure you can agree that amongst the filler episodes, there's stronger ones and there's weaker ones, so I'm eager to see a handful of filler to see some of the stronger ones, and I feel like this is probably a mid-range one, but I think they could still tighten up some of it. Like, I know Power Rangers always has the cheese and stuff, but I just feel there's a way to tighten it up a little bit. I'd probably give the episode overall like a solid 7. Like I said, next week we're taking a break because the Kids' Choice Awards air in the evening, so you gotta preempt the episode that's on like at 6 a.m. That makes sense. You gotta give it a solid 12-hour buffer, so that's logic. It is only logical. No, it's not. It is not. But so I remember last week, I don't know if you remember, I talked about doing a Beast Morphers theory video. I was thinking about doing that all week. I think this will be a perfect opportunity to do it. So I think next week, in place of an episode review, I will do a Beast Morphers theory episode. Let me know if you guys have any in the comments. Maybe I could bring up, if I remember, or anything you'd like to see me address, you know, just to help along with that. But yeah, so expect that next week. And as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps, entering that bell. Don't forget to, you know, I just said that. Why did I just repeat myself? Good thing, good thing, good thing. Dawson Ryder, signing out.